All right, good morning. We had discussed the basics of anti-defection law. We'll do a full analysis of anti-defection law today. Okay, चलिए. So let's start with anti-defection law. ये थोड़ा सा पॉलिटिकल है तो थोड़ा सा ध्यान दीजिएगा. इसको किस हिसाब से करना है, किस हिसाब से नहीं करना है. Right? So let's start. We are going to be discussing anti-defection law, and when we discuss anti-defection law, what is it that we will be covering? This is a full analysis important for the means. First, आपको defection का मतलब, what is the meaning of defection? You have to first understand this, and then you have to understand how you are creating a law to control or to eliminate defection. Then you have to understand, is this just an Indian concept or does this happen everywhere else in the world as well? Then we'll understand your basic legal milestones, what are the constitutional amendments and the Supreme Court judgments that have given some kind of understanding to anti-defection law. All right, now thank you, Shashi. Thank you. Once we've understood this, we will then understand the implications of defection on various democratic and other functionaries. और इसके बाद we'll understand what are the kind of reforms that are needed to make anti-defection law better. Defection in its simplest meaning is धोखा. लोगों को प्यार में धोखा मिलता है, यहाँ राजनीति में धोखा होता है. डिफेक्शन का सबसे सिंपल मतलब होता है धोखा. Now you must understand what this means. For example, some of you might be engineers and you would have taken political science, international relations or sociology or public administration as your optionals. You have committed optional defection. Your education stream and your optional are two different things. You would have seen this in many ways in sports. Indian Premier League, in a lot of footballing leagues, English Premier League, etc., etc. You will see players which move from club A to club B. वो मैनचेस्टर यूनाइटेड में थे, अब चेल्सी में आ गए हैं, वैसे वैसे. Similarly, you would have also heard of something called religious defection. Suppose you were a Hindu and you've now become a Christian. So this is called religious defection. Defection in its simplest meaning is the change of loyalty. Defection in its simplest meaning is the change of loyalty. Thank you, Varun. Now you must understand, we are referring to political defection. We are referring to political defection. Now, political defection in 99% of the cases happens from the opposition to the ruling party. It usually happens from the opposition to the ruling party because of political opportunism. कि आप हमारी साइड आ जाइए, आपको मंत्री बना देंगे. You will be given a ministerial berth if you decide to leave your party. So the menace of political opportunism had to sort of be solved. Now you must understand, most of our laws are taken from the UK. UK does not have an anti-defection law. So the Constitution of India, which is greatly inspired from the Government of India Act 1935, which was a British legislation, also did not have anti-defection law. लेकिन कुछ ऐसा हुआ 60s, 70s, the growth of regional parties, the growth of alternate political systems, कुछ ऐसा हुआ जिसकी वजह से थिंग्स बिकेम एक्सट्रीमली कॉम्प्लिकेटेड। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, हरियाणा में एक पॉलिटिशियन थे जिनका नाम था हरीलाल। वो एक दिन में 3 पॉलिटिकल पार्टी बदलते थे। ब्रेकफास्ट वॉज विद वन पार्टी, आया राम गया राम जिसके लिए हम बोलते थे। लंच वॉज विद अनदर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी, डिनर वॉज विद अनदर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी। उन्होंने 5 दिन में 15 पॉलिटिकल पार्टी बदली थी। गया लाल नाम था। एंड दैट इज हाउ द फ्रेज आया राम गया राम became very very common in Indian politics because of a Haryana MLA, right? Now Haryana MP called Gaya Ram. Now very interestingly, by the 70s, almost 50% of our MPs and MLAs had started defecting to other parties. We have approximately 543 Lok Sabha MPs and we have about 4120 MLAs. इसका आधा दल बदल के इधर जा रहे थे, right? So this was a major issue, which was why you had to create what is called anti-defection law. You will see that these incidents, ये जो political opportunism है, ये सिर्फ इंडिया नहीं हर जगह होता है. In fact, Winston Churchill had also committed political defection around his time, right? But for some reason, you will see that a lot of the South Asian countries and the countries which have been colonies of the British, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, otherwise also, say Sri Lanka, some African countries like South Africa, all of us have what is called anti-defection law, legal provisions which do not permit this kind of a treatment. This leads to disqualification. Disqualification is like you have been rusticated from school. Disqualification does not mean suspension. जब MP MLA चेयर कुर्सी तोड़ता है तो उसको सस्पेंड करते हैं, बट जब MP MLA दोगलापन करता है तो उसको टर्मिनेट करते हैं. Suspension and termination are two very different things. Remember in school, if you planted a bomb in the bathroom during Diwali, you would be suspended. But if you planted a bomb in the principal's office, you would be terminated. So these are two very different things. For example, in the winter session, several MPs were disqualified because of how abrasive and how obstructive they were in the previous session during the farm law protests. So we will discuss that in privileges later on. But you must understand, anti-defection law leads to disqualification. And disqualification does not mean that you have to pay a fine or you will have to go to jail. You are just disqualified from the house. There will be a re-election, you can fight that re-election and come back. But it does not mean that you are banned or you cannot contest an election for a few years. ऐसा नहीं है. Disqualification is just letting you go from the house. हाँ, privileges. आपने सर पैर तोड़ा, आपने किसी को गाली गलौज किया, then you may be suspended and the parliament has the powers to send you to jail also, has the powers to impose a fine also. Similarly, if you have been convicted for a crime with more than 3 years of rigorous imprisonment, then you will be banned from Indian elections for 6 years. ये कानून सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बना के दिया है in the Lily Thomas case. But with respect to disqualification, you are just removed from the house. There is nothing else that happens at all under any circumstances. So this is how it works. Okay. Now, so we'll get into the technical details of it. I'll tell you how this works. I'll walk you through the process. कि क्या defection होता है, क्या नहीं होता है. Suppose a party A is merging to party B, तो वो क्या सही है कि नहीं है. Suppose party B is merging to party C, कितने MLA चाहिए, कितने MP चाहिए, all of those things. Remember, anti-defection law will apply to all members of all houses, which includes your presiding officers, speakers and deputy speakers, except the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, because the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha is the Vice President of India, and he is the only person who's not a member of the Rajya Sabha. Everybody else is a member of the House. Even the Speaker of Lok Sabha is a member of the Lok Sabha. If you're not a member of the Lok Sabha, you can't be the Speaker. So that is something you must understand. इस देश में सिर्फ एक ही इंसान है जो हाउस का पार्ट है लेकिन हाउस का मेंबर नहीं है, and that is the Vice President of India, right, who is also the chairperson of Rajya Sabha. All right, so these are some basics. Now we've discussed some broad elements yesterday. We will now get into the technical details. बहुत ध्यान से देखना. So the anti-defection law was actually passed in 1985 after multiple attempts through the 52nd constitutional amendment. So through the 52nd constitutional amendment of 1985, we inserted the 10th schedule to the constitution, which contains certain provisions of anti-defection law, and the reference articles are 101, 102, 190 and 191. These are disqualifications for MPs and MLAs respectively. Now, what kind of a majority would be required? Special majority 2, not special majority 3, which means 2/3 of present and voting in such a way it is more than half of the total strength of the house. You are only looking at Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha to pass this and include this in the constitution. ये क्यों है? Because the center, the parliament has superintendence over center in state elections. It is affecting states, but states don't need to be asked this because of rule number 2, center stronger than the states. Now, this amendment added the 10th schedule to the constitution, and the intention, the exam has asked you the intention to curb the evil of political defections. And therefore, very broadly, legislators, and any legislator, MP, MLA, anybody except the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, because you are not a legislator as a chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, you may be disqualified from the house if you resign or if you defy, and I'll come to the conditions in just a bit. But this is the broad introduction to anti-defection law, right? Now that we understand this, let's understand कि भाई इस देश में हुआ क्या है, हम क्यों इस बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, ठीक है? So for example, remember I discussed with you yesterday, there are two kinds of MPs or MLAs. Either you are elected or you are nominated. If you are elected, then you are two kinds of elected. Either you are elected on a party ticket or you are elected as an independent candidate, right? Now, I remember I told you that independent MPs or independent MLAs cannot join any political party after they have been elected for the time that they have been elected, because you have told the people कि मेरी आइडियोलॉजी ये है कि मेरी कोई आइडियोलॉजी नहीं है, राइट? सो यू कांट ब्रेक द ट्रस्ट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी. बट नॉमिनेटेड पीपल, रिमेंबर मैंने एक बार क्या बताया था, हेमा, रेखा, जाया और सुषमा सबकी पसंद निर्मा, all of them were Rajya Sabha MPs at a point of time. Now they were nominated in their original setup. Sushma was elected later on, but a lot of these people could not nominated MPs, nominated MLAs. Rajya Sabha में nomination कैसे होता है? Literature, Arts, Science, Social Service, and Legislative Council में कैसे होता है? Cooperative Societies, Literature, Arts, Science and Social Service. जो लोकसभा और राज्यसभा में होता था एंग्लो इंडियन का नॉमिनेशन, कि 2 लोग लोकसभा में एंड 2 लोग एंड एक लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली में वर एंग्लो इंडियन नॉमिनेटेड. अब वो नहीं होता है. लास्ट ईयर ओनली we have removed this provision very recently. Okay, we've removed this provision recently. We do not have any Anglo-Indian nominations anymore because we are adequately representing them. Now you only have nominations in the Lok Sabha and you have nominations in the legislative councils. You have nominations in the Rajya Sabha and the legislative councils. You do not have nominations in the Lok Sabha and the assemblies, जहाँ एंग्लो इंडियंस का होता था. क्यों? क्योंकि हम ऑलरेडी चूज कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. Anyways, so if a nominated MP or a nominated MLA, for example Sachin Tendulkar was nominated to the Rajya Sabha, now आप बोलोगे sir literature, art, science and social service. So how did Sachin Tendulkar become a Rajya Sabha MP? Because he was also registered as an NGO and under social service he was considered a Rajya Sabha MP. He can join a political party and he can join a political party only within the first 6 months of the current Lok Sabha. Only within the first 6 months. For example, we are currently in the 17th Lok Sabha. The 17th Lok Sabha is from 2019 to 2024 and this started in the month of July. So in the first 6 months of the 17th Lok Sabha, nominated MPs can join any political party. Why? Because you have not been chosen for your political affiliation. You have been ideologically chosen for your expertise, for your greatness in your field. तो आपका भी तो हक है एक political association करने का. लेकिन इसकी आड़ में आप इधर उधर पूरे नहीं 5 साल कर सकते. So that is why you've been given 6 months. Why 6 months? Because India has a BMW format. Budget session, monsoon session, winter session. इन तीनों सेशंस के बीच में मैक्सिमम गैप सिर्फ और सिर्फ 6 महीने का हो सकता है. दैट इज वाई विद इन 6 मंथ्स आप चूज कर लो विच एवर पार्टी यू वॉन्ट टू ज्वाइन, नो प्रॉब्लम एट ऑल. बट वंस यू हैव डिसाइडेड विद इन दो 6 मंथ्स, दैट इज इट. उसके बाद नहीं बदल सकते. राइट? ओके. सो एनीवेज, व्हाई आर वी टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस? बिकॉज देयर वाज दिस पर्सन कॉल्ड जिग्नेश मेवानी, इंडिपेंडेंट एमएलए फ्रॉम गुजरात. वो उसने प्रेस में स्टेटमेंट दे दिया दैट ही हैज जॉइन्ड द कांग्रेस इन स्पिरिट. उसका आत्मा कांग्रेस में चला गया है. सो ही, बिकॉज ही कुड नॉट फॉर्मली जॉइन द कांग्रेस, इंडिपेंडेंट एमएलए है, बट उसने ऐसे प्रेस में स्टेटमेंट दे दिया. दैट इज व्हाई इट बिकेम सच एन इशू दैट इफ यू कांट जॉइन इन प्रैक्टिस, यू कांट जॉइन इन प्रिंसिपल ऑल्सो. सिमिलरली बंगाल में बहुत नाटक हुआ है लास्ट ईयर. सो लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड दिस. इन बंगाल there is a BJP MLA called Mukul Roy. ठीक है? This BJP MLA called Mukul Roy, जो now is back in Trinamool Congress. ये जून 2021 से there has been a complaint of anti-defection against him pending with the Speaker of the Assembly. Now you think he was from the BJP, has joined Didi's party, Speaker is from the Didi's party. Complaint has been sent to the speaker who's from Didi's party. No action has been taken. And that is why a lot of times what happens is complaints are made and complaints are pending for 5 years. The entire government only changes, तो सारा मामला ही खत्म हो जाता है. There is no timeline for this. There is no limit कि अच्छा आपको 1 साल में डिसाइड करना है या आपको 6 months में डिसाइड करना है, क्योंकि हाथ में तो स्पीकर की है. Who is deciding? कौन डिसाइड करता है आपको डिस्क्वालीफाई करने के लिए? स्पीकर करता है. बिकॉज इट इज और द प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर. इन द लोकसभा द स्पीकर विल डिसाइड ऑन इश्यूज ऑफ एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ. इन द राज्यसभा द चेयरपर्सन विल डिसाइड. सिमिलरली फॉर असेंबलीज एंड काउंसिल्स. वाई? बिकॉज दिस इज एन इंटरनल मैटर ऑफ द हाउस. इससे हाउस की मेजॉरिटी अफेक्ट हो रही है. हाँ, मैंने आपको कल बताया था दैट अगर एमपी मर्डर करता है या एमपी का दिवाला निकल जाता है, then the president decides, and the president decides on advice of the election commissioner, because ये हाउस के बाहर की बात है. You are disqualifying them on the basis of Representation of People's Act, other constitutional provisions. उसके बाद आप उसने मर्डर किया है तो उस पर क्रिमिनल चार्ज लगा लो. बट अगर कोई एंटी डिफेक्शन कर रहा है तो उसको सिर्फ और सिर्फ the presiding officer of that house will remove, nobody else. अब वो भी तो अपना ही इंसान है और वो आया गवर्नमेंट में है और स्पीकर भी गवर्नमेंट का ही होता है, सेम पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का. दिस इज व्हाई इट इज ऑलवेज सेड द स्पीकर इज नॉट एन एपॉलिटिकल ऑफिस बट यू आर एक्सपेक्टेड टू बी पॉलिटिकली न्यूट्रल. स्पीकर एपॉलिटिकल होता नहीं है, उससे उम्मीद करी जाती है कि वो न्यूट्रल हो. दैट इज व्हाई इट इज अ मैटर ऑफ कन्वेंशन that the speaker will always be from the ruling party and the deputy speaker will always be from the opposition party, so that there is a balance of things. So anyways, what had happened with Mukul Roy was he had contested and won the 2021 Bengal elections. बीजेपी टिकट में जीते और तुरंत जाके तृणमूल कांग्रेस में आ गए. ठीक है. Calcutta High Court had to intervene and then say that, and this of course was challenged. कैलकाटा हाई कोर्ट ने बोला कि नहीं, आपको इसको इमीडिएटली सॉल्व करना चाहिए. विल कम टू दैट. नाउ इन झारखंड, राइट, यू वुड हैव हर्ड ऑफ समबडी कॉल्ड बाबूलाल मरंडी, इज अ फॉर्मर सीएम ऑफ झारखंड. ही ऑल्सो फेसेस सिमिलर प्रोसीडिंग्स बिकॉज ही हैज मर्ज्ड हिज इंटायर पार्टी झारखंड विकास मोर्चा प्रजातांत्रिक विद द बीजेपी. आप पूरी की पूरी पार्टी मर्ज करते कैसे हो, अलाउड है कि नहीं है? तो दैट इज समथिंग वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड. वॉट इज अलाउड इज इफ 2/3 of the MPs of a party decide to merge with another party, that is allowed. That is allowed. And वो जो remainder 1/3 है, they can continue as an isolated party. They cannot join any other party. So this kind of a party merger is allowed. Party split is not allowed. We will discuss this immediately. All right. There are video fluctuations, is it? Okay. 1 second. I'll just have a look. Okay, now let's continue. Yes. Similarly, in Rajasthan, Mayawati's party, जो उनका राजस्थान में भी है. By the way, in election reforms, I'll teach you what is a national party, what is a regional party, what is a registered party. So, 6 BSP MLAs, Mayawati के 6 BSP MLAs have merged their entire party with the ruling Congress in Rajasthan. मतलब BSP has been merged with Congress in Rajasthan, right? This of course has been challenged by the BJP higher command कि आपने ऐसे कैसे कर दिया, and the Supreme Court has given the 6 MLAs a final opportunity to explain ये ऐसा किया तो क्यों किया, why was this the case, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the issue. Now this is also an issue with Trinamool Congress in Lok Sabha also. So 2 Trinamool Congress MPs and 1 South Indian party, YSR Congress party, the MPs are also facing similar proceedings. So basically what happens is the Trinamool Congress wants to disqualify 2 of its MPs. One of them is called Sisir Adhikari, who is the father of Suvendu Adhikari, who was very, very popular in the Bengal elections last year for joining the BJP, because the son has joined the BJP and is BJP's face in Bengal. and YSR wants to disqualify its MP for anti-party activities for some of the uh, the statements he made in the public. In 2019 in Goa, 10 of the 15 Congress MLAs merged their legislature party with the Congress. In the same year, 6 BSPs merged their Congress in Rajasthan. This is being heard in the Supreme Court. And in Sikkim, 10 of the 15 MLAs of the Sikkim Democratic Front have joined the BJP. तो पता नहीं क्या ही चल रहा है. So this is why ये आपके सामने हो रहा है, but इसमें कुछ कर नहीं सकते. There is very rarely does an MP or an MLA ever get disqualified on defection. Now in 2020, 2 years ago, the Supreme Court in the Meghchandra versus Legislative Assembly of Manipur case had actually dismissed a Manipur minister. Matlab dismissed, the Supreme Court ordered for the dismissal of the minister because the speaker had not decided for 3 years. वो फाइल दबा के रख दी थी, जैसे पुलिस थाने में करते ना, फाइल दबा के रख दी थी, तो फाइल दबा के रखती थी. And the court had said ideally the speaker should take about 3 months. Our ex-vice president of India had internally set up a procedure because he was the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. Any disqualification petition on anti-defection law, the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha will have to dispose in 3 months. So internally they can regulate their own houses. Now in the 2021 winter session, अभी 1 महीना पहले दिसंबर में KTS Tulsi has raised a private member bill. A private member bill क्या होता है? Any MP who's not a minister is a private member, and any bill can be introduced by any MP, right? So this is called a private member bill. So in the Rajya Sabha, KTS Tulsi has introduced a bill saying that we should have a 3 months deadline for anti-defection cases. So this is why anti-defection law becomes very, very important. This is what has been happening in the country for the last 1-2 years. अब ध्यान से समझो कि ये लॉ बना कैसे, ये क्या हुआ, कहाँ से हुआ, ठीक है. So it is in 1985 that we amended the constitution, and we amended 2 parts of the constitution. Under articles 101, 102 and 190, 191, we added one line: please refer to anti-defection law for further details. And then we added the 10th schedule to the constitution. There have basically been 2 major Supreme Court judgments. One, Kyoto Zolohan in 93 and Ravi Nayak in 94. It is in both of these cases that the Supreme Court has given certain guidelines. Can the Supreme Court review it? What are the kind of mergers that would be allowed? What is meant by anti-defection and the grounds? Okay. And in 91st Amendment 2003, the government has made certain changes. जो मैं आपको party mergers की बात कर रहा था वो यहाँ पे किया. In fact, because it was all about political opportunism, it is through the 91st Amendment, you will remember we've discussed ministers, that the number of ministers at the center cannot be more than 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha. इंडिया में लोकसभा की जो टोटल स्ट्रेंथ है उसका 15% से ज़्यादा मिनिस्टर्स नहीं हो सकते. अदरवाइज आप ऑपोजिशन से खींच के बना लोगे ना. जैसे यूपी में यही तो हाल था, that everybody used to make coalition politics, used to get MLAs from other parties, give them a ministership. This is also true for states. Not more than 15% of the strength of legislative assemblies of the states, and with a minimum guarantee of 12. As Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim have special exemptions. And as I was telling you, between 67 to 72, you had more than 2,000 cases of defections and counter defections amongst the approximately 4,000 MPs and MLAs. इतने बुरे हाल हो गए थे 1967 में that out of the 210 defected legislators, MP, MLA, 116 had directly become ministers, and almost 50% had already changed their party once. And there were several attempts in 1973 to introduce it, but it lapsed तो लोकसभा डिसॉल्व, इमरजेंसी का टाइम आ गया था. एंड देन फाइनली you had the 52nd constitutional amendment of 1985. अब बहुत सिंपल बात है. This is a law which is punishing you for something. That means there must be some grounds for punishment. There must be an authority who is going to decide whether you have committed this issue or not. There are going to be some exemptions, and we are going to figure out whether the punishment is justified or not. बस यही चार चीज़ें. These are the only four things that we are going to understand in the context of एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ. देखो ये है आपका एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ, बहुत ध्यान से देखना, ठीक है. दीज आर योर ग्राउंड्स, ये डिसाइड करेंगे, और ये एक्सेप्शंस हैं. इन योर मीन्स आंसर्स दीज आर ऑल्सो गोइंग टू बी योर हेडिंग्स, एंड दिस इज योर हेडिंग फॉर एनी पीनलाइजिंग लॉ, ठीक है. अब वो चार चीजें क्या हैं? फर्स्ट, यू हैव वॉलंटरीली गिविंग अप मेंबरशिप ऑफ द हाउस. जिस थाली में खाया उसी थाली में छेद कर दिया. बीजेपी वेव राइड करके आए, और जैसे ही बीजेपी के एमपी बने आपने तुरंत कांग्रेस पार्टी में जाके बैठ गए. सो दैट इज वॉलंटरी गिविंग अप मेंबरशिप ऑफ द हाउस. नाउ हियर द सुप्रीम कोर्ट विल गिव एन इंटरप्रिटेशन व्हाट इज मेंट बाय वॉलंटरी गिविंग अप मेंबरशिप ऑफ द हाउस. सिमिलरली डिसोबेइंग पार्टी डायरेक्टिव्स. आपको बोला था येस वोट करने के लिए, आपने नो वोट किया. आपको बोला था नो वोट करने के लिए, आपने येस वोट किया. आपको बोला था डोंट वोट एट ऑल, डोंट वोट एट ऑल, देन आपने जाके तब भी वोट कर दिया. रिमेंबर हाउ क्लासेस हैव क्लास मॉनिटर्स, हाउसेस हैव विप्स, है ना, चाबुक मारते हैं, विप्स. अब जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल एवरी पार्टी विल हैव अ विप इन द हाउस. एवरी पार्टी, लोकसभा में बीजेपी का विप होगा, कांग्रेस का एक विप होगा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल आम आदमी पार्टी, राइट, आम आदमी पार्टी हैज ओनली वन एमपी, एंड देयरफॉर दैट एमपी इज द एमपी एंड द विप आल्सो. भगवंत मान जो अब चीफ मिनिस्टर ऑफ पंजाब बनेंगे, तो वो एक ही, तो वो लेफ्ट पॉकेट से अपना विप ऑर्डर निकालता था और राइट पॉकेट में रख देता था. वो अपने आप को विप ऑर्डर इशू करता था कि हमको हम ही से चुरा लो, हम ही वोट करेंगे, right? So that is how it went, right? So this is called a whip. Okay, a whip is basically a class monitor, and there are leaders of the house. There is a leader of government, there is a leader of opposition. If the prime minister is a member of that house, the prime minister is automatically the leader of that house, and if the prime minister is not, then somebody else is, right? Now somebody is asking, how did Jaitley become the minister if he lost the Lok Sabha election? That is why he was made a Rajya Sabha MP. Like for example, during Manmohan Singh's time, Manmohan Singh was an MP from Rajya Sabha, and you get 6 months. Basic game क्या है? You have to be an MP to be a minister. If you're not an MP at the time of becoming a minister, you have 6 months to become an MP, because the parliament meets every 6 months. अब उस टाइम पे क्या था? लोकसभा was a very tight election, so there were no seats available. राज्य सभा में there were seats available, and there was only one seat available in Rajya Sabha, and that also from Assam. But problem क्या था? There was a provision in Representation of People's Act that you had to be a resident of Assam, or you had to be a domicile of Assam to contest the Rajya Sabha election from Assam. So what the Congress party intelligently did, they changed the law. They said you don't have to be a resident of the state anymore. And every party welcomed it because it is going to help them later also. So that is how Manmohan Singh became what is called, that is how Manmohan Singh became the member of the Rajya Sabha and continued to be the Prime Minister. Alright, so that is the case. अब disobeying party orders, आपने जाके न्यूज़पेपर में एडिटोरियल लिख दिया. फॉर एग्जाम्पल सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी, आज तक किसी को नहीं पता वो उसका रियल पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी क्या है, राइट, अंडरस्टूड, बट नोबडी हैज द करेज टू कंप्लेन अगेंस्ट हिम बिकॉज उसके पास सबका फाइल है. सो दैट इज द इशू. बड़ा सिंपल है, जब तक कंप्लेन ही नहीं करोगे तो एक्शन कहाँ से लेंगे, राइट? जब तक कंप्लेन ही नहीं करोगे तो एक्शन कहाँ से लोगे? सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी कभी बीजेपी को गाली देते हैं, कभी कांग्रेस को गाली देते हैं, राइट? किसी को नहीं पता वो उनका क्या है मतलब. देन ऑफ कोर्स आई टोल्ड यू, इंडिपेंडेंट एमपी जॉइनिंग अ पार्टी, and nominated joining after 6 months. I'll give you the interpretations to this. And I told you, the presiding officer decides, and only if there is a complaint. They cannot do any suo moto decisions. Suo moto मतलब अपने आप से. For example, how courts have suo moto powers. Last year Supreme Court ने अपने आप ही केस अपने आप को दे दिया on COVID issues, on management of COVID issues. Nobody filed a case. Supreme Court had suo moto powers on it. Right? These kind of powers are not there with the presiding officers. क्योंकि अगर ऐसा होता तो वो सारे opposition को निकाल देते, फिर अकेले ही खेलते दिन भर बैठ के. So that is why suo moto powers are not there. And this is at the end of the day a legal question. You cannot have any time limit on a legal question. And that is why it is left to the presiding officer. तो कई बार क्या होता है, फर्स्ट ईयर में कंप्लेंट होती है, फिफ्थ ईयर तक पहुंच जाते हो, हाउस ही खत्म हो जाता है, बिकॉज सरकार बदलने का टाइम आ जाता है. सो दैट ऑफ कोर्स इज एंड इशू. ऑलराइट, ओके. नाउ there are some exceptions, as I told you. Only one exception through the 91st amendment, which is, suppose political party A wants to merge with political party B. That is only possible if 2/3 of the MPs of the political party who have been elected have agreed to join political party B. The remainder 1/3 can continue as a smaller fraction. They cannot join a new political party C. ये कानून अब बनाया है. पहले 2003 के पहले क्या था कि स्प्लिट्स अलाउड थे, अब सिर्फ मर्जर्स अलाउड है. राइट. नाउ वी विल लुक इनटू सम टेक्निकल डिटेल्स and we'll try and figure out what are the other kind of provisions we are talking about. कि भाई कानून कहता क्या है. Right. Now let's understand this. Okay. See, there are some very simple key provisions. When can a legislator be disqualified? When you give up the membership of your political party, you vote against the direction of the house, and a member shall not be disqualified if you've taken prior permission or the party has within 15 days not objected to it. If an independent candidate joins a political party, if a nominated one joins after 6 months. Are there any exceptions? There is only one exception, the 2/3 one. A person shall not be disqualified if the original political party merges with another party, and that is only possible if more than 2/3 of the party have agreed to the merger. Right? Now this means you and members of your old political party become members of the new political party, or you do not accept the merger and you continue to function as a separate group, which I've already discussed. Who decides? The chairman of the speaker of the house decides, and therefore if a complaint is received, they have to take appropriate decisions. All right, understood this? So this is the basic provision. These are the technical provisions. Now we'll look at the analysis of it, which is the most important part. Why was this law enacted in the first place? इसकी क्या ज़रूरत पड़ी? Extremely important discussion that we need to have. Why did this happen? See, there are two basic reasons why this had to happen. The first was, you wanted to combat political defections which were happening due to corruption and bribery. अगर इंसान को नौकरी बदलने का हक है तो पॉलिटिकल पार्टी बदलने का हक है. But the question is, why are you changing your political party? Because when you're changing the political party for the wrong reasons, you are basically playing with the democratic mandate of the people, the democratic functionality of the people. Right? This is also a very good example in ethics on means versus ends. If your means are flawed, then your ends are never worth it. That's the basic explanation to this. Right? Understood? Now, so what basically had happened was, as I was telling you, in the years preceding 1985, there were a lot of such instances, and the minister at that time for parliamentary affairs YB Chavan had set up a committee and examined and found out that there was certain, miscreant activities that were happening. And secondly, when you do this, you are breaking the trust of your constituency. Your voter has voted you for two reasons. One, either you have a political party backing you or you don't. And second, for the individual promises that you have made to the voter. ये दोनों आपने कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर दिया, आपने अपना प्रॉमिस तोड़ दिया, राइट? एंड दिस आर्ग्यूमेंट is obviously based on the recognition of the role of political parties in the parliamentary system, right? And ये तो वही बात हो गई that the party has arranged for your election expenses, given you airtime, given you everything, and just when the right time comes, you have decided to defect on the basis of power. So this is why anti-defection law was enacted in the first place. These were the primary reasons behind it. Okay, now we move to the next part. What are some basic issues? अगर मेंस में आएगा तो यही चार में से एक सवाल आएगा, रट के जाएगा, उल्टी करेगा, मार्क्स लेके आएगा, मेरे को धन्यवाद बोलेगा, बस मेरे को मार्क्स चाहिए. क्या चाहिए? मार्क्स. My political ideology is that I am a Marxist with an S, not a K. मार्क्स लाना है, एग्जाम निकालना है, बाकी ज्ञान बाद में, ठीक है? All right. So there are four basic questions that come out of anti-defection law. First, you can regulate the conduct of an MP or an MLA. Now, when you are trying to regulate the conduct, that you can't say anything against the party, you can't vote against the party, if you have been given a whip that you have to vote yes on the law, but you think you have to vote no on the law, is it not violating your own conscience as an independence as an MP? अगर तुमको सब कुछ पार्टी के हिसाब से करना है, then what is your individuality as an MP or an MLA? That's the first question. Second question, because of this, all BJP MPs will say the same thing about the same issue, and all Congress MPs will say the same thing about the same issue. What about intra-party debate and dissent? How can everybody have the same opinion on the same thing? How does everybody in BJP say farm laws was a great idea? How does everybody in Congress say farm laws was a bad idea? अरे एक दो तो होंगे जिनको लगता होगा नहीं ठीक ही था, but you cannot say that out publicly. And third, because of this, does it restrict them from voicing the concerns of their voters in opposition to the official party position? Did you ever hear of a BJP MP from Punjab having concerns over farm laws? कभी नहीं, क्योंकि विप है, आप बोल नहीं सकते. एंड लास्टली, ये जो जज कर रहे हैं स्पीकर साहब, ये खुद भी तो रूलिंग पार्टी या कोएलिशन के हैं. डोंट यू थिंक दैट द जज इज ऑल्सो फ्लॉड? एंड बिकॉज द जज इज ऑल्सो फ्लॉड, डोंट यू थिंक वी शुड हैव अ न्यूट्रल बॉडी फॉर द सेम? So these are the basic issues that exist. These are things that we must understand. So अब इसका हम interpretations देख लेते हैं. Effect of this on the role of a legislator. As an MP or an MLA क्या फ़र्क पड़ता है? ये as it is means में रट के जाएंगे और कुछ नहीं करेंगे, ठीक है? As it is means में रट के जाएंगे. Now let's start. Anti-defection law provides for disqualification if you vote against the party. इसका मतलब आपको जो whip issue हुआ है, you have to vote in accordance to that whip. As a result, you are forcing your MPs and MLAs to vote exactly how the whip wants you to vote. Therefore, your conscience, your independence has been restricted. And as a result, the accountability between the voter and the elected representative has been flawed, has been broken, has been disrupted. And that is why the balance of power between the executive and the legislature, that has become questionable. The whole point of having a parliamentary democracy, the whole point of choosing your elected executive, which is your ministers, from the legislatures is so that you can keep a check on them, कि आके हमको पार्लियामेंट में बताओ कि ये क्यों करना चाहते हो. Otherwise, you would have just become a presidential form of government in the first place, right? Otherwise, we could have just become a presidential form of government in the first place. So this is why you end up doing what you end up doing. Okay? Now, because of this, what has happened is that only a few people are the ones who are telling the whip what to do, what not to do. So only a few people in the party are actually governing the whole conduct of the party. And if the speaker has to be removed, then the house will elect somebody else to conduct the removal proceedings of the speakers. Now, इससे compromise कैसे हुआ हमारा लोग? What has happened? Because of this, you are supposed to exercise. Now, see, in a parliamentary system, every legislator has an independent role. Your job is to analyze the laws that the government wants to pass, the policies that the government wants to pass, and question them for it. And that the opinion that an MP or an MLA should be based on the combination of public interest, competency and constituency interests, and affiliations. And what happens is when a whip has to compulsorily be issued, see, a whip can be issued for everything, doesn't mean it should be issued for everything, which is why a fundamental freedom of choice gets undermined, and therefore every MP or MLA is forced to vote in a certain way. And if every MP or MLA has an opinion which differs from the party stand, you are not allowed to express that opinion. Like, for example, let us say there is an issue of water sharing dispute between states. MPs who are representing constituencies in different states will have to be forced to vote in a certain manner. वो उनका constituency को affect करेगा, लेकिन उनकी उससे ज़्यादा उनकी नौकरी प्यारी है उनको. So they will vote according to the interests of the party, not the constituency. This is why it is very, very dangerous, which is why parliamentary debates and discussions have become a joke. Because the second you really allow for an open debate, people might just be thrown out of the parliament. Now, because of this, has parliamentary accountability or checks and balances been affected? Yes, because one of the key features of parliamentary democracy is accountability of the government. And how do you do that? By questions you ask the ministers, by discussions on various government policies, by debating national issues. Had you ever heard a BJP MP asking a BJP minister in the current Lok Sabha, or a Congress MP asking a Congress minister in the previous in the 14th, 15th or the 14th Lok Sabha? Never. आपने पूरा वो फंडामेंटल स्कोप ही वायलेट कर दिया है, ठीक है? And therefore, what happens because of this is that you are not able to even look at a no confidence motion, which could then remove the government. Okay. Now, what happens is anti-defection law reduces this possibility. It reduces the ability of the MPs to keep the governments accountable, because you have to follow instructions from the whip which come from the party high command. Therefore, even if you are wanting to debate and dissent, even if you have a different opinion, you will still be forced to vote as per the instruction of the whip. तुमको जितना मर्जी पार्लियामेंट में कह के चिल्लाना है एज अ बीजेपी एमपी कि फार्म लॉज खराब है, but when it comes to voting, you will have to vote as per the BJP whip. Otherwise, you will be thrown out of the house. I'll give you an example. In December 2012, when there was a vote in Lok Sabha on 51% FDI should be allowed in multi-brand retail or not, ये बहुत बड़ा issue हुआ था because local kirana shops, what will happen to them and all that. During the vote, all of the members of the Congress party voted for the policy and all the members of the BJP party voted against the policy. ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है? How does everybody have the same opinion? Because the whip was issued. You have to vote like this. सरकार तो नहीं गिरेगी, तुमको हम हाउस से बाहर जरूर निकाल देंगे, right? And that is the problem. See, by definition, the party or coalition हैज़ द majority of the membership. जब उसके ऊपर से आप डिसेंट भी कॉम्प्रोमाइज कर देते हो, then you compromise executive accountability to the legislature. And as a result, the legislature becomes what is called a very ineffective way to really keep accountability of the parliament. Now comes the next question. How has anti-defection law affected the citizen, your and my ability to keep our MP or MLA accountable? एक तो आपने लेजिस्लेचर अकाउंटेबिलिटी का चेन ब्रेक कर दिया, दूसरा हमने भी तो अपने MP MLA को वोट करा है, उसका क्या? You must understand that when we give a vote and elect our MP or MLA, it is our job to see the performance of our MP and MLA. We have to figure out what is it that they have to do, how good or bad is their performance, and that entire ecosystem gets broken because you can't judge them on their parliamentary record. सब एक जैसे ही वोट करेंगे तो हमको समझ में क्या आएगा कि इसने सही किया या गलत किया है. I'll give you a simple example. Suppose you are somebody who has a very strong opinion on the acquisition of land by the government, कि कैसे ले सकते हैं, किससे पूछ के ले सकते हैं, कहाँ ले सकते हैं, किस लिए ले सकते हैं. आपने अपने MLA को जाके बोला, MP को बोला that this is our view and if a land acquisition bill is presented, you should vote no on that bill. ठीक है. The MP or MLA will have to give you a clarification if he believes that your view is wrong, and therefore the citizens have the ability to at least have some clarity if they have a differentiating view than the legislator. यहाँ पे भी तो बात है that an MP has a very conflicting role. Are you supposed to represent what the constituency is saying, or are you supposed to represent what you are thinking, or are you supposed to represent what your party is thinking? फंस गए ना. And that is why if they feel that the legislature has failed to do so, they can express their displeasure और अगले election में निकाल देना. Because everybody is supposed to vote as per their party directions, the MP and MLA will keep coming and telling their constituency, मेरे हाथ में नहीं था, मेरे को तो ऊपर से order थे, sorry मेरे को अगली बार मत निकालना. That's the basic problem, right? For example, let us say there is a vote on a bill to regulate fish trawling. Fish trawling is basically fisheries and pisciculture around the coastal areas, and of course it had an environmental impact because it leads to affection of biodiversity and marine life. Now an MP which represents a coastal constituency where large scale fish trawling supports the local economy, you will have to vote in favor of the bill, right? आप कह रहे हो कि ये फिश का इंडस्ट्री थोड़ा रेगुलेट करना चाहिए बिकॉज इन्वायरमेंट में फ़र्क पड़ रहा है, बट द MP इज़ फ्रॉम दैट एरिया वेयर पीपल्स लाइवलीहुड्स आर डिपेंडेंट ऑन इट. बट पार्टी का भी पाया है, वी वांट टू बी अ प्रो इन्वायरमेंट पार्टी, तो आपको तो वोट करना ही पड़ेगा. एंड व्हेन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी विल आस्क आपने ऐसे क्यों वोट किया, ही और शी विल से मेरी क्या गलती थी, मैं नहीं करता तो मेरे को निकाल ही देते. एनीबडी एल्स वुड हैव डन द सेम थिंग in my place. So these are some of the basic explanations that are there. Okay, now because of this, the last question that we have is, has it affected decision making in the house? Yes, it has. Because of the whole whip issue, political parties are frequently issuing whips. This means anybody who has leadership control, majority control, will control how the parliament functions, and that is one of India's biggest problems, that we are functioning like a parliamentary democracy, but in reality we are seeming like a presidential democracy. Even our elections have become very identity based elections. Modi versus who, Modi versus Gandhi, Modi, Kejriwal, Gandhi, Mamta Didi. ऐसा था ही नहीं. Parliamentary democracies are supposed to be very localized. They have to be very grassroots in a certain amount of nature, right? So this of course becomes an important discussion to have, right? So as a deliberative body, Parliament today has now become just a unilateral body. आए चुपचाप वोट किया निकल गए. I'll give you a simple example. जो भी ये फार्म लॉ था जिसको हमने पास करा था, फार्म लॉ इन द पार्लियामेंट वाज डिबेटेड फॉर अ टोटल ऑफ 12 मिनट्स. बस 12 मिनट हो गया, लोगों की जानें चली गई, आप घूमने नहीं जा सकते. 12 मिनट पे वोट करा है बिकॉज विप इशूड था, आपको वोट ही ऐसा करना है, राइट? Now, how do other democracies deal with it? This is very important. Mature democracies such as US, UK, Canada, none of them have an anti-defection law. ठीक है, बाकी कंट्रीज में नहीं है. Parties can issue a whip, can exert pressure, ये सब ठीक है. But if an MP or an MLA is disobeying the party, then you are not removing the MP or an MLA. ठीक है. Now you must understand that in the UK, if a whip has been issued and the MP has violated the whip, you will not throw the MP out of the UK Lok Sabha, which is called House of Commons or House of Representatives. आप उस पर disciplinary action लोगे. Okay, simply disciplinary action. There are only 40 countries in the world which have an anti-defection law, and there are only 6 countries in the world where MPs or MLAs have to vote as per party discretion. बाकी सब में क्या है कि if you resign and you join any other party, then they will throw you out of the house. वो justified भी है that you are being disloyal. But if you are voting against party interest is because आपका role है as an MP. And ये 6 countries की आप कंपनी देख लीजिए, इंडिया भी है इसमें, पाकिस्तान, बांग्लादेश, गायना, सियरा लियोन, जिम्बाब्वे एंड मेरा भारत महान. We have one of the most regressive laws as far as anti-defection is concerned. Okay, अब बेसिक सवाल उठता है कि इससे पॉलिटिकल स्टेबिलिटी आई क्या? Were you able to control government? Were you able to maintain the 5-year consistency? That is why you were trying to do this. That people are moving from party A to party B. कभी सरकार गिर रही थी, कभी कुछ हो रहा था. क्या वो हुआ क्या? And this is where you have to understand. ऐसा नहीं है that whips have not been defied. Whips have been defied left, right, and center everywhere in the country. Okay, in 2008. This was a confidence motion was moved by the Congress party in 2008 because the Communist Party of India, Marxist, had withdrew support from the Congress. This was during Manmohan Singh's time, where we had signed a nuclear deal with US, and Manmohan Singh said nothing doing. Come heaven or come hell, we are going to make sure that this deal is India's interest and we are going to execute the deal. आपको छोड़ के जाना है, आप जाओ, हम फ्लो टेस्ट करते हैं, we will still have it. And though anti-defection law was there, 21 MPs defied the whips issued to them, but किसी ने कुछ नहीं किया. 2006, this is around the budget, Uttarakhand 2016 budget. 9 MLAs of the ruling party voted with the opposition कि आप बजट के वोट्स दोबारा रिकाउंट करिए, और अगर बजट फेल होता है तो सरकार गिर जाती है. कोई कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन, कुछ नहीं चाहिए. इफ द बजट फेल्स, द गवर्नमेंट ऑटोमेटिकली रिजाइंस. अगर आपके पास इतनी मेजॉरिटी नहीं है कि आप बजट पास कर सको, तो यू हैव नो बिजनेस बीइंग द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ द कंट्री. कुड हैव हैड अ वेरी पोटेंशियल इम्पैक्ट. कुछ नहीं हुआ इनके खिलाफ. 2015 अरुणाचल प्रदेश नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन. 2015 Arunachal Pradesh no confidence motion. In 2015, 20 MLAs have defected in Arunachal Pradesh. These MLAs, with the opposition, passed a no confidence vote against the ruling government. सीधा सीधा 2000 मतलब बेसिकली क्या हुआ कि कांग्रेस के 20 MP दूसरी पार्टी में चले गए और दूसरी पार्टी के साथ मिलकर नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन भी पास कर दिया. पहली बात, अब जा ही नहीं सकते थे. सुप्रीम कोर्ट डिक्लेयर्ड दैट नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन इज इनवैलिड एंड रीइंस्टेटेड द गवर्नमेंट बैक इन पावर. ठीक है, सो इट हैज़ नॉट रियली हेल्प्ड. इट हैज़ रियली नॉट हेल्प्ड. और ऐसा तो नहीं है ना कि हमारे स्पीकर साहब भी बड़े दूध के धुले. हैज़ देयर बीन इम्पार्शियलिटी? नो, देयर हैज़ बीन नो इम्पार्शियलिटी. एब्सोल्युटली. कहीं पे आपने डिसीजंस डिले करे हैं, कभी आपने लिए ही नहीं हैं. Sometimes you have let the decisions be in the favor of the political party, and therefore it is of course an issue of grave concern. For example, Andhra Pradesh, 23 YSR parties defected to the Telugu Desam party from 2015 to 2018. कोई एक्शन नहीं लिया क्योंकि सरकार उनकी स्पीकर उनका, अरे चारों को तो मंत्री बना दिया था। तेलंगाना, because when Andhra Pradesh Telangana was being formed, massive defections happened. 26 MLAs defected from opposition party to the Telangana Rashtriya Samiti 2014 to 2018. No action was taken. 26 में से 12 को तो मंत्री बनाए हैं, almost half. So you have really defeated the purpose of anti-defection law. And that is why Rajya Sabha chairman had also recommended that 3 महीने में decide करो. Law Commission ने भी बोला कि भाई स्पीकर तो majority vote का person है and will always be biased to the government. He should not be the person deciding it, right? So that is why there are some issues. Now अब हम क्या क्या कर सकते हैं? See, what all can we do? First, political parties should not issue whips for everything, right? 2, you should disqualify only on the basis of somebody is moving from party A to B or defying a no confidence vote. बाकी जिसको जो करना है करने दो. Third, मर्जर्स में जो हमने डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन दे रखी है जिसमें बहुत ज़्यादा ये होता है, आई टोल्ड यू अभी कि वो गोवा में बीएसपी का इशू, ये हटा दो. इसकी आड़ में मैसिव बाइंग एंड एक्सचेंज ऑफ एमएलएस होता है. That these 6 BSP MPs from Rajasthan who have merged with the Congress, right? Imagine the amount of money they would have taken. This is where a lot of black money actually goes. ये जो आपने कानून में बहुत वेगली लिख दिया है, voluntarily giving up membership of a political party, you must very clearly and very comprehensively define it. कि मतलब क्या होता है इसका, right? And pre-poll alliances should also be considered as a political party. आपको याद है महागठबंधन? कहाँ गया महागठबंधन? लोगों ने महागठबंधन सोच के वोट करा, महागठबंधन टूट गया, लोगों का वोट टूट गया, right? And the speaker should or should not be, the speaker should not be deciding all of this. Let the president decide on the advice of the election commission. And if the speaker has to decide, it has to be done as fast as possible. Maximum period of 6 months, within 3 months खत्म करो. And सिर्फ डिस्क्वालीफाई करने से थोड़ी ना कुछ होगा. जैसे वो अभी कर्नाटका में हुआ था, वो वापस वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी खाली हो जाएगी. There will be a by election. They will contest from the same party or a different party or independently and come back. You have to make sure that there are certain restrictions. कि आप 5 साल तक 6 साल तक इलेक्शन नहीं लड़ सकते. They should also be barred from holding any other public office. कि किसी कमेटी का मेंबर बना दिया, कहीं कुछ बना दिया. And therefore, अगर कई बार क्या होता है, a lot of people use this as a method to topple the government. कि हम कैश फॉर वोट्स वाला जो स्कैम हुआ था, कि सरकार गिराने के लिए हम पैसा लेंगे और ऐसा वोट करेंगे, उन वोट्स को ही आप डिसरिगार्ड कर दो, वो वोट ही नहीं काउंट करेंगे. जब वोट ही नहीं काउंट करेंगे तो बात ही खत्म हो गई. लॉ कमीशन, नेशनल कमीशन टू रिव्यू द ड्राफ्टिंग ऑफ द कमीशन, दिनेश गोस्वामी कमेटी एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फॉर्थ. अब इसके ऊपर एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ में कुछ नहीं आएगा. प्री में भी इतना, मेंस में भी इतना बढ़ के जाएगा, फुल मार्क्स लेके आएगा, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगा. आई हैव ऑलरेडी गिवन यू द प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस येस्टरडे. देखो मैंने आपको बताया था मेंस में क्या क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं. बहुत सिंपल क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं. ये देखो, role of individual MPs has diminished over the years. As a result, healthy constructive debates are not witnessed. How far can this be attributed to anti-defection law, which was legislated but with a different intention? Break it into sub questions. What was the intention behind anti-defection law? How much is anti-defection law responsible for role of individual MPs? What else has caused the diminution of role of individual MPs? How can we make anti-defection law better to improve the role of individual MPs? खत्म. 4 पॉइंट की 4 आंसर, टिक 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 टिक. 200 वर्ड लिखने हैं, 10 नंबर का क्वेश्चन है, 2 पेज लिखने हैं, नंबर लिख के आना, एग्जाम क्लियर करना है, बस. ठीक है, अंडरस्टूड. We can take a 5-minute break. I'll just check the fluctuation issue and then we'll solve it accordingly. ठीक है? In case there is an issue, then we will appropriately take the action. Okay? Thank you. Uh, Guys, there's an intermittent internet fluctuation issue. So what we are going to do is, thank you. What we are going to do is stop the class here, and we'll take it up from here tomorrow.